Hi, I'm Araminta Matthews, the Director of Educational Effectiveness and Head of the Instructional Design Department here at Kennebec Valley Community College. I wanted to send a quick email with a short video describing some features of the gradebook that I want to make sure everyone is aware of because I've received several questions from faculty about how to set the gradebook up in terms of a specific feature regarding whether or not to treat ungraded items as a zero or to drop ungraded items from the gradebook. And this is a really important feature, particularly around midterm when you are asked by the registrar to submit your midterm grades. It's also a really important feature if you have your gradebook exposed to your students so that they can see how they are doing in your class. Which is actually one of the reasons why KV has a policy that your gradebook is visible and that you use your gradebook for feedback for your students, is so that your students can keep their finger on the pulse of how they're doing in your class. So 2 weeks ago, I did a full gradebook training with the instructional design team. There is a video for that is a very lengthy video and detailed video, and it shows you how to set up your full gradebook. Right now, I want to focus specifically on treating ungraded items as a zero or dropping them from the gradebook. So let's talk about what that means. Now, if you are building your course content out as you go, this is a course website and I clicked on content. If you're building it out as you go, then chances are you're only going to have one module at a time and you'll be adding content, one content item at a time. And if you're only adding one content item at a time, then it is okay for you to treat ungraded items as a zero because you only have one or two things in your student's gradebook at any given time that the students might be failing. Because when you treat an ungraded item as a zero, it's philosophically like saying all of your students are failing your class until they prove to you they can pass. As opposed to the other philosophy, which is drop ungraded items, which is like saying all of your students are passing your class until they fail. So really, you got to choose which philosophy you're going to work with. But the one time it's okay for you to treat ungraded items as a zero is if you are building your content as you go. However, best practice, particularly in online or hybrid classes, has you build out your entire course before course begins. And that means your entire gradebook is laid out before the start of the class. So this is a sample gradebook. It has me and our instructional designer, Laura Ingalls, in it, just to give you kind of an example of what a gradebook would look like. And notice how there are some items built out in here. Imagine this is my entire course, the whole course, everything that you would ever have to do from front to back to complete assignments in this course. Right now, I have it set to treat ungraded items or unattempted items as to drop unattempted items. To drop unattempted items. What that means is, for example, this discussion board, one of my students has made an attempt, and I can tell because there's this attempt mark and a little orange dot tells me I haven't looked at it yet when I'm looking at the gradebook. But one of my students hasn't done it. And it's the gradebook is just ignoring it. That little dash means that Brightspace is ignoring it in its final calculation. And the reason why that's a good thing is because I have a lot of grade items in here. And if all of these were zeros, my student would feel like she was failing before she even completed any of the work. And even if she gets an A on this assignment, because all the other items in this gradebook would be a zero, Brightspace would tell her at the end of the day, her final grade right here, the final grade is an F, even though she got an A on everything that she's done for work. So let me show you what I mean by that by taking you through the setup wizard. So the setup wizard is where you set the defaults for your class. And this is going to be based on your syllabus and how you have defined your grading methods, whether you're using weighted or points. That's really up to you. And if you have a question about that, please make an appointment with Laura Ingalls or myself, and we can walk you through how to set up your gradebook. And there's also the gradebook video, the full training, which is also, which we'll be sure to attach so that you can see it or go through that training on your own time if you like. The next item is make sure that the calculated final grade is visible to students. This is important because it helps students to know how they're doing in your class. So make sure that box is checked. I'm going to click continue. This is where we're at drop ungraded items or treat ungraded items as a 0. Now, I'm dropping ungraded items, and that means that Brightspace is not factoring it in the final grade until I go in and manually put a 0 into every assignment my student has missed. And I will do that after the due date for that assignment has passed. That's if I keep drop ungraded items as 0. But watch what happens if I treat ungraded items as 0. Remember, I'm just going to quickly move through the rest of the setup here. Remember, treating ungraded items as 0, if you've got your whole course built out, it means that all of those assignments that you've built out, they're going to be 0s. And even if your student got an A on the first assignment, the rest of the assignments are 0s. And so Brightspace is going to tell them that they are failing the class when in fact they are probably not. So let's look at what this looks like. Now suddenly everything's in red. My student who got an A, B minus on the very first assignment, looks like she is actually failing this class with a very low F. 31.49%. That is a pretty low F. The other student has a 25.65. Why? Because they haven't done all of the assignments that I've set up. So this one right here, manually graded assignment, this assignment right here, the students haven't done it, so they got a 0. Or this one right here, talk about discussions. Students haven't done it, so they got a 0. Quick quiz, they got a 0. They haven't done it yet. That quick quiz actually isn't due for 3 more weeks, but they haven't done it yet, so the gradebook is registering it as a 0, and that means the total calculation that the student is seeing is that they've got an F. Look at this. She got an A on a major assignment. So did this one. This one got a B plus on a major assignment, but it doesn't matter because I have my gradebook set up to treat ungraded, unattempted items as a 0. My students think they're failing no matter how many A's they've received because all these things they haven't done yet are getting an automatic 0. And this is particularly problematic with quizzes because if you have a quiz that automatically grades, meaning a quiz that is mechanically or machine graded, that quiz will render a 0 until you go in and publish the scores. So even if you have a quiz that is machine grading your students, you still have to go in and publish those scores or the students will think they got a 0 on the quiz. So let's flash forward, pretend it's midterm time. Now it is time for you to report to the registrar how your students are doing. Well, normally you would go in here and you would look at the final calculated grade and you would say, oh, my students have this percentage at the midterm. Well, if all your students are failing, and they will be if you have set it up as treat unattempted items as 0 and you have a full grade book, then that looks like you are failing all of your students as well as your students are failing the content. That doesn't look good for anyone. So instead, I'm going to go through the setup wizard again very quickly. I'm going to turn that off. And I'm just going to tell you what you have to do when you have drop unattempted items in your gradebook, drop ungraded items. What it's going to do is give you the actual score based on only what the student has attempted. And if a student has not completed an assignment that was due and it's past due, all you have to do is go in and manually enter that 0. And you would do that just like this. You head over to grades. So you'd click grades. You'd click grades from the drop-down menu. And you'd head over to the column for the item that they haven't done. Let's say it's A2 paperwork. This hasn't been done. It was due on September 1st. Nobody did it. It is now September 7th. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to enter those 0s. I click the drop-down. I hit enter grades. And I go ahead and pop those manual 0s in there. I can give feedback and say, hey, there's still time to do assignment. Please do it before time runs out. You can earn partial credit, whatever it is I want to say. Maybe I want to say that to both of them, so I'll copy it. I save it. I'm going to save that for the other student too who didn't do the work. Save, and then save and close. And those zeros have been manually saved into the scoreboard. So now the score that I see for an average is more accurate because my students aren't taking this quiz until 3 weeks from now. So this shouldn't be factoring into their current score as of today. As of today, I really only need to know how they have scored on the work that I have expected them to complete, the work that has been due up to today's date. And that's what you need to submit during the midterm when you're submitting the midterm grades. So really, when you do your setup wizard as drop ungraded items so that it puts that little dash in, and Brightspace does not factor that as part of the score. And then after the due date has passed for that item, just head over to grades, find the column. We'll say this one, like let's say this one was due and one person did it and one person didn't. Click the drop down arrow, select enter grades. Give a 0 to the person who didn't do it. Give them whatever feedback you want to give them. Save, close, yes. And now you have an accurate assessment of how your students are doing in the class. Now, again, there are some nuances and there are some instances when you might do things a little bit differently. I suggest you reach out to an instructional designer for a conversation if you're concerned about those nuances. But for the most part, if you have a course that is fully built out, front to back, with all of the things that your students will have to do from the first day to the last day, best practice is to treat those ungraded items, to drop them from the gradebook and go in manually and enter a 0 after the due date, rather than to treat all ungraded items as a 0, because your students will think they're failing even if they're getting A's on everything if you do it that way. I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, schedule a time to work with one of our instructional designers. Laura Ingalls is fantastic and can certainly help you with this. I am sometimes available to help as well. Happy to do so. And also take a look at the full gradebook training that we did just a couple of days ago, which I'll be sure to link in addition to this video. Thank you for your time.